There we go.
Yeah, we'll head into spending on.
Just saying, I made myself a smoothie for lunch and I'm trying to sip on it while we do this. So I might just turn my camera off here for a minute.
Yeah, no problem at all. We know you're there. It's good to see you. Thank you.
And you might need to turn your mics off.
Yeah, I'm turned off.
Oh, you're good. Just let me know when you're ready to start. I'm going to turn the AC up.
I'm gonna be in a different. Oh, we're ready to go. We got Jenna. So we got a forum. And I thought Sunny was gonna be here. And is our mouse or whatever you call this thing working?
Yep.
Spider.
Hold on.
It looks like an owl.
Oh, hold on. It's weird.
We can see you.
You can see all of us?
You guys, I can see Andrew.
Just a second.
You're the new spokesperson, Andrew.
You don't want that.
There you are. Now we can see all of you. It's kind of scary, actually.
And you can hear us okay, Jen?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, here we are on the 21st of August. This is the Citizens IGA Task Force meeting, and we'll kick things off. We'll do a self roll call. So Douglas Matthews,
Mark Suslow,
Cindy Fisher,
Charlie Stevenson,
Julie Jacobs.
or Jen. Jen, we got Jen on the line there.
Ben Wingard.
And we got Hannah joining us and Barney. And David is traveling today. And Sonny might not have been able to arrive, as I think you all know, his father passed away a couple days ago. He's back in town, but may or may not be able to join us. Well, first, thank you. Up there he is. There he is. There he is.
there was nobody else to help me get out the car.
Oh, sorry, Brandon.
Sorry about that, guys. I was out there.
We'll pause one moment.
There was nobody out there to help me get out the car. I'm sitting out there because somebody. No worries, no worries. Sorry about that, guys. I'm here.
Sorry, we didn't get it.
Oh, you don't roll right now?
You're right on time. You're right on time.
You just thought I was ditching you guys.
Not at all, not at all.
We knew that. You couldn't quit us.
Okay, well, I'm happy to be here. Did you guys hear what happened?
Yeah.
Sorry. And let me tell you something. I'm sorry for the people on the meeting here.
Sorry, Sonny.
He was
Thinking about you a lot.
10 years old. Thank you. 97. And when you say 97, he was still driving 10 days ago.
Wow. That's amazing.
He was still hitting on the nurses when he was in hospice. So that gives you an idea of his spirit.
Yeah.
And he's into his 5th book. And so when I saw him 2 weekends ago, that's all he could do was sit there in the bed and concentrate on what he was trying to get for us in the future. But we knew he was dying, and it was so sad. So 2 weekends ago, driving back and forth to Albuquerque, that's a long drive for me with a one leg by myself, but I did it. But you know what? I'm so happy I made it down on Friday night to see him before he passed out in the morning. And man, as much as at one time as a kid, I hated him. You know how that is when you have a hard father been raising you. But you know what? I'm happy that he's so his ashes are going to be spread over Pikes Peak.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. And it's worthy of noting, which on what I think will be our last formal meeting. Thank you all for enduring this process and being part of it, constructive. We got off to a pretty bumpy start. We covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot of material. We had some lively debates, and I think we're ending up with some pretty solid recommendations and some clarity about, if nothing else, some clarity about what the concerns are that the board can address. So hopefully that's that. So today what we want to do is, this should be pretty smooth. I don't think there are too many open big items. There's some wordsmithing things, but what we'll do once we cover our formalities is we'll just walk through the outline one more time. I'll show you, I've started to put some of it in the presentation. I wanted to get the outline done before we formally drop it all into the presentation, so I don't have to do it twice. And then the thought is we'll just circulate that PowerPoint or PDF, however people want it, for final edits, reviews. If we need to, from a formality standpoint, we can do a 30-minute Zoom call to all officially approve the presentation, which I think is probably going to be necessary. But we'll figure that out as we go, if that's cool with everybody. Any thoughts? Does that work? With that, we covered roll call. The agenda is pretty short. It's really to review our documents, unless anybody else says anything else to add to it. No, Jen says no. Excellent. So with that, I guess we need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion approved. Martin seconds. All in favor? Right. Unanimous. Approval of the minutes from the 13th of July, our last August, sorry.
It feels like
Sorry, what did I
July.
put July? Sorry, that error in the document. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't have any edits to it. I don't know if anybody else had any edits to the minutes.
I think I got your initials right this time, Cindy. It does
I
matter.
don't really care
It
too
does
much, but
matter.
I just, you know, I've been letting it roll for a long time. It's like, maybe I'm not supposed to.
I'll get it right now.
That's right. Do we have a motion to
Motion to approve.
second? All in favor? Comment, question? No, Jen's in favor. Good. Excellent. With that, let's dive right into the draft. So we had some really good edits. A lot of wordsmithing came across this week. I think I captured everybody's comments in there pretty well. And what I'd like to do is just go from the beginning of the presentation through the end or the outline, and just make sure there's a couple of items I wanted to bring up and a couple of things where I think we may want to rearrange the order on the presentation, and I'll get to that when we go through it. And if those of you on the screen don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and put up the initial starting point of the PowerPoint presentation, because I want to cover the first couple of pages that aren't really documented in our outline. If that's cool with everybody. And again, we'll send this out. I think you saw it. This is the basic format that I'm thinking we will use. Really simple. I just copied and stole some stuff off the website to create it. The title pages will be horizontal like that. The data pages will have the green bar at the top of the page. I still like the idea of starting with Julie's quote, and I'll explain that to the board when we get to it, why that's an important quote. But it's basically, this is a tough topic. It's a charged topic, and I think we've done a good job of getting where we needed to get. There'll be a table of contents. When everything is done, I'll fill that all out. This first page, what is the IGA? What is the purpose? This is that original document we all created. So I just copied and pasted it right in there. Second page is who is the task force and what was our charter. And I'll try to make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. I just talked about how we were selected out of the 16 applications, diverse backgrounds, perspectives, representation in various parts of the town, a mix of homeowners and renters, and a mix of men and women. And everybody's listed there in alphabetical order from first name. And I think I have everything right. I corrected Jen, your location as a South Sider.
So Wendy is also a South Sider.
We calling her a South Sider or East Sider?
She's a South Sider. Or she could be Southeast.
Do those descriptions all feel okay? Charles is Confluence, Cindy Stone Canyon, I'm Upper North, Jen is South Side, Julie's Lower North, Martin's Southwest Side, I guess, is that how you describe that?
We're all west. So everybody that's west of Highway 36, that's Wendy, Sunny, Martin, and me. We're all southwest.
I'm in the hood.
The new hood.
Again, I can change anything anybody wants to
I
change.
think it.
Close enough?
The idea is
No, I know.
a variety. of
The variety.
locations.
I'm sorry to make a human thing
Yeah.
about it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Omnipresent.
Omnipresent, that's right. I copied more or less from our actual charter, from the actual document, what we were assigned to do. And why, because there were significant concerns raised by citizens of Lyons in the 2024 draft. The Board of Trustees and mayors created a short-term citizen task force to review the draft IGA and make recommendations to the BOT. The nature of the review and the recommendations was not defined. And I think that's important because it left it really open for how we wanted to do that. And I think we did it that way. Given the concerns expressed by the citizens across the community.
So that should say concerns, not concerns.
Thank you very much. When I send this out, please do a close wordsmith to my typing, my spelling, all that stuff. Given the concerns expressed by the citizens across the community, we're diverse and focused on both the transparency of the IGA development process as well as the specific data on both the IGA agreement itself and the related map of the potential annexation areas. The task force chose to make a comprehensive review and offer recommendations on all three areas: the process, the legal agreement, and the map. Dissenting views. Knowing that views and opinions were so diverse across the community and our group, our charter specifically called out that if necessary, differing recommendations may be presented as the task force felt were appropriate. Everybody okay with that? And, the process, this top part, our mission, that's what we developed those first two sessions, just a copy and paste. The process started June 6th. The task force met live for 1.5 hours per session on a weekly basis with our final formal meeting on August 24th. So well done, everybody. I think we only missed 2 weeks. One purposely missed, one because of the fire. Community input kind of discussed what we all said. We were not in a position to hold public hearings, and it would have been duplicative to what the board's going to have to do anyway. So, but I put that in there mostly so other people understand why we didn't do that. Data collection, I went into the types of data we have, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in case there's anything else that we want to add to the back of this document in terms of actual documents or links to documents that have already been reviewed. So we'll talk about that. Okay.
Quick question there.
Yes, sir.
Community input, do we need to mention the letters we received?
Data collection. I think I saw it in data collection. It's kind of-
Yeah, I can, members collected data from past reports, studies, historical
I
reports,
saw that.
collected digital maps.
Citizen inputs.
I thought I saw
Citizen
letters or
inputs.
something there.
Do we expect?
Citizen inputs, there it is. Okay.
Yes, that down here at the bottom, all data, maps, citizen inputs,
Yeah, good point. I
staff
thought I'd seen
inputs,
that
et cetera, were collected and shared amongst the task force and are referenced in this document. So at the back of the document, which I'll show you in a little bit, Cindy went through and started to organize everything that we've had so far. And we'll start to put those into buckets. I got a great review or a montage from Julie this week and some of the data she collected. I'm going to use that same format for the Apple Valley Road people because there were too many to put in there. We have a couple of specific letters. I just received 2 more this week that people wanted to put inputs in there, so I'll just drop them in there. So pretty simple there.
Did we, I can't remember if we actually left room for community input or data input from the community to be, because we weren't really talking about getting too much feedback.
Other than if you talk to people or
We did.
like I've received more emails in this last, whatever, it's been 75 days than I normally ever receive on my private email.
Right.
I mean, I've been flooded with letters and
I
comments
think
and
some people
questions.
send letters, some people just talk to some people.
Yeah.
What I did was I put together a little document with some quotes from the people that I had talked to or done surveys with. I don't have letters from, I only have one actual letter from people.
Right.
So if you wanna, and I can help, if you wanna compile some of the comments you had,
Right.
we can do that. We
Okay,
can
we'll
put
do
a
that.
Word document together and compile the things that you think are important, and we're including that
Right.
as part of this package.
Right.
So let's connect after this. and
Oh,
I'll be happy
okay,
to
good,
help.
because obviously, as you know, me being up there.
Yeah.
I've talked to several people in my community.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about, the small town homes, obviously that was a huge no-no. But then when we talked about other things, and then of course, when the fire happened, that really highlighted a bunch of things. And so things kind of went kind of haywire. So if we don't have time to talk about it now, I understand that, but obviously there was a lot of input, not only from that standpoint of Summit, but because some people in lines knew that I was on the IGA committee. Obviously, I don't think people necessarily say shout to you guys. And I'm not gonna say I'm gonna stand out because I stand out, but people did shoot to me for some questions and some other things.
Perfect.
You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. That's good.
So if people make comments and they did this, that, they, you know, they made their usual jive comments, but you know, they did what they did.
Yeah.
So that's why, and I did say to them, note the things, make a list.
We'll put a document, because that's what I did. I just kind of sent something to Doug that I thought more important for the people I talked
Right,
to. So we can put something together and submit it, and we'll include that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And 15 seconds, just, even though I didn't talk to most of you guys often, outside the meeting, Doug and I communicated quite a bit, so.
So this means things can still go in.
Yeah, especially things like that.
That's
I
what.
mean,
Yeah.
so things can go into wherever this sits and
Yeah.
be linked.
Yeah, and we'll organize it in a way that's really easy for the board to find. So if they want to see consumer inputs, there'll be a section and there'll be a dividing page that looks like that.
Uh-huh.
That'll say community input.
Yeah,
And
I
then
just
behind
wanted
it will
to
be
be
all the.
sure that there was some place that, I mean, we're not done putting things in this.
100%.
And that's why we'll have another vote, a final vote.
Yeah.
once we should put like an absolute deadline for
Yeah.
anything new, and then we vote, and then there's nothing else.
I just don't wanna keep working when it's over, you know?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why I'm
So
asking, because I was the linker on this stuff and I don't wanna
100%.
And that's why
put
I
more
said what I
links
said,
and things
to
that
the
aren't
input.
going anywhere.
Yeah, so we'll cover that at the end of the meeting. Let's see where we are. Let's try to set some dates and deadlines that work. I'd like to get this to the board at least by, say, that Thursday before the holiday weekend. They have a massive agenda on the 3rd, massive agenda, because a bunch of stuff got pushed back. Some stuff got pushed back this week. The River Bend thing got pushed again. So they have a huge agenda. We're first on the agenda, which is good because we'll get them when they're fresh. But I would like to get them the document as early as reasonable possible, but I'm not sure we can get it done before, say, Wednesday of next week, a week from today. So
I have a functional question. How big is this screen you're gonna show this on? Because
it'll be that screen, but it'll be on Zoom.
is it
I
not-
assume we'll do the meeting in here unless,
It's just that it's not very large to read from.
Well, they'll probably get
See.
copies of, they
They'll-
can print out
they
copies
can
of
print
it
out.
ahead of time.
Yeah,
So they
You can actually make that actual piece, that screen, you can actually make that larger. You don't have to have all of those.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
the
if we-
outside doesn't have to be, I just We usually trim things in the university the other direction so the sides can be bigger. But I mean, that's fine to go page wise as long as they have it in front of them.
Yeah, they should have a
Because
copy of it.
I wouldn't be able to read that.
But to that point, would it make sense to switch it to a horizontal landscape view for the majority of the content and have the title pages be the?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, the only reason I did it this way is because every other report and study was in this format.
Oh, okay.
Because I've never seen it like
I-
a presentation.
I actually had to
Like a
go
piece of
like
paper.
figure out how to create it.
Oh, you know why? It's just because when they print it out, then it's
Yeah.
like.
I guess.
It'll be a
standard
book.
8.5 by 11, it's
Yeah.
more for reading.
It'll be a book, and basically, as you'll see, there's gonna be about 8 or 10 important pages, and then the rest is all backup data,
Reference.
Right.
reference material.
Hannah has this.
I'm sorry, yes, Hannah?
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt the flow, but I just wanted to hone in on something I heard. Are we, is the goal to have a presentation for the BOT? Is that date already decided?
Yes, we're going to be able to present on the 3rd of September, which is a Tuesday after the holiday weekend. And we'll be presenting it from 5 PM to 5:50 PM is our window.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
And you're doing that.
And we'll do it live, and whoever's here, I know Charles is out, I think somebody else said they were out. So it'd be great if you can be here, that'd be, yeah, moral support. And again, I presume it'll be here unless they feel like 5 o'clock to 5:50. Unless they feel like the audience is gonna be too big, and then they'll move it to the library. But they have such a packed agenda that I'm guessing they're gonna wanna
Be home.
be home. But Victoria's not with us today, but I'll follow up with her and we'll confirm. Okay. The next page is still kind of rough. So this is when we start to get into the outline itself, and I'm basically gonna just take it and try to drop it in here as much as possible. Exactly, using it exactly as we have it. I'll reformat it where necessary to highlight different words and things. For example, on the first area, which is the first thing we'll talk about on the outline, the primary areas of concern that we identified, I was able to go through each one and actually put a heading in it that made it a concern.
Yeah.
And then I put the notes behind it. So those are the only kind of changes that I'll try to make to the content, is just for readability and formatting sake. And then we'll drop the rest in and review it and see where it goes. And then at the very end, this is gonna be really hard to see. I'll see if I can even begin to show it. That's the early list of the documents that we have. I mean, it's like 2 pages long. And what I might do on each one of those, like where it says maps, if it requires an explanation, I'll put an explanation of what the maps are or why they're included. What documents are there. I don't think we'll actually put all the documents in unless there's some that are particularly relevant that we want actually physically in the deck. Rather, if they've already been submitted, they're already in the computer system somewhere.
So you mean you're not gonna link them? or
No, they'll
you're
be
not
linked.
copying them? Okay.
I just
Yeah,
won't
well,
put,
that'd
else it'll be
like
like,
crazy.
7,000 pages.
yeah, right. There might be a few things, there might be a few of the maps, like the original, I'd like to put the original, I'd like to put our red line version of the agreement actually physically in there, because somehow they're gonna have to, we're gonna need that for the record.
You might put up their document list, active links or something.
I
Like,
will,
if somebody
yeah.
had a paper copy, they might not
They wouldn't
realize.
realize.
Yeah,
oh,
I
this is
haven't-
not-
I haven't cleaned this up since you
Okay,
gave it to
just-
me, I just
yeah.
took it and dropped it in.
I
You
mean,
drop
I
that
should have
in as
done that, but I
cross-reference?
wasn't thinking about it.
I'm sorry?
Are you dropping a set that's cross-reference?
Yeah, and because it's such a relevant part, I think it's important for the public to see exactly what we changed on the
Okay,
document.
so basically you want to have it almost like side by side, like cross-reference, so,
Yeah.
okay, so, oh, this changed, okay. this-
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of the presentation. Anybody thoughts, questions, concerns about where that's going?
Just, I'm gonna clarify. So I know that the document with all the, are you also gonna put a clean one in?
I
mean,
could,
It's easier to look at.
it is, but if they don't know what we changed, then
Well,
they
no,
don't
I'm
know,
not saying one or the other,
but put both.
put, you know,
Red line
title
and
that's
then
like
clean.
red line
Okay.
tracking document and then you know, final
Yeah.
draft or final product of the, just because it's so much easier
And then I'll,
to flow.
yeah, and I'll also submit them into the records
Mhm.
so that there'll be a hot link as well.
Okay, yeah.
So people
And
can
then
do it.
hot link it, both of them, yeah, because I mean, been here every week and it's still hard for me to like
Yeah.
ignore it after you realize, okay, that's what's out, then to just like put it back.
It's better. Julie helped clean it up a little. We went and
Well,
reformatted
that wasn't
everything.
like a criticism,
Yeah.
it's just like there's a lot of stuff, so you're paying attention to the stuff that's not in it anymore,
Your
and then you
brain
kind of
reads it
lose the
anyway.
flow of what's in it, right?
Yeah. Yes, Mark.
I'm just curious, when I was reading through this, it all reads really well, I just, if I can get the right section here, so reference. The different options, option A, and then it says draft option A, text by JJ.
Yep.
Jacobs. I'm just wondering if you are gonna present your, or map version and Julie's gonna present hers?
I was,
How's that gonna
we
go?
can do it either way. I mean, I was planning to present them
Both?
just completely unbiasedly as they're written, or as they're presented. Without
this is
commentary.
JJ's version, this is,
Yeah.
you know, like, this is just, these are the two.
These are the two
recommendations,
options.
These are two
Right.
options that
I like
the
that.
task force.
Does that feel okay to
I'm
you?
Right.
fine with that. I
Yeah.
mean, we'll be around for questions if
Yeah.
people have, if they
Yeah.
wanna understand more,
I
so.
think
Yeah.
authorship isn't necessarily all that
So
important.
Yeah.
we're submitting this as a group.
As a
I'm
group.
happy to, I don't need
Yeah.
specific credit or a moment to say anything, let's just submit it as a group, this is what
Yeah.
we're.
And they'll basically be read as in read here with the other one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna read, well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see how the timing works. Julie's is only 2 paragraphs long, so I can more or less read it
Yours is.
word for word.
Yeah, the second one.
The second one
Thank
needs to
God.
be, the second one needs to be wordsmith down still a little bit, but
Option.
instead of getting shorter, it seems to keep getting longer, so I gotta work on that.
No comment from me.
I apologize if this was talked about last week, but it's kind of just, it was sketchy with my,
Yeah.
internet connection last week. But anyway, the other question I had was along your lines of, you're gonna get that specific with the breakdown of each of these factors, the location factor, the physical environmental.
I think it'll end up being,
Would that be?
they'll each be like 1 page, so there'll be the first, option A recommendation is easily gonna fit on 1 page. Option B recommendation, the text needs to be condensed so that it fits on 1 page, so you have 2 pages. The next sections are related to option B because it says you should use some criteria, so it'll be, here's an example of a criteria. If you're gonna do an affordable housing overlay, here's an example of a criteria, so it'll be one, I think we'll be able to break it down to like single pages.
So just on this A and B topic, are we going to have like a, not a vote, but like a show of support for A or B that we would, unless we talked about, you know, like identifying that in this process? So it's like this group, you know, unless, if there was a wide difference in opinion.
You know, I think that's an open discussion. I was gonna ask that same question in the group today.
Yeah.
I personally kind of go back and forth on if we should do that. I know when the day that we said there's gonna be an A and B, which was early in this process, Wendy was still participating with us. She's not now, so
Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
kind of, well, I mean, she's not here,
Oh,
so,
right. Oh, did she officially resign from the task force?
I haven't heard anything, but
Oh, wow.
Jen's here, that's why we have an alternative, so,
Right.
or an alternate. So I don't know, Julie, do you have a feeling about if we should call that out or not call it out? I kind of feel like it's divisive to call it out.
I agree, but I will defer to the group, because, you know, it may be at this point, I'm the only one who likes option 1.
Yeah.
And if that is what we want to present, then I'm happy to be the only voice for that, or we
Yeah.
can vote on, I mean, I
So-
don't have a strong, I don't know that I have a good objective opinion.
Let me propose this, if it's okay with everybody, let's get the outline done and let's get it in the presentation. And then when we do the final
Yeah.
review.
Yeah.
And vote, let's take that up as a topic, because it's easy to always, we can always go back and go, this was supported by
Right.
this person or these two people,
Right.
and the rest was supported by other people.
Well, I also think it's likely that we're gonna be asked, what was the split of support for A versus B? I mean, so we should be prepared to answer that question of like, oh, no, let's go around and do a quick thing in the middle of the presentation.
I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't tell you how it falls out, so we don't have to say it in the thing, but
Right.
at some point before it's all over, I probably should know that, because somebody might ask me,
Right.
and also I could say as I was there every week, but I don't know.
I don't know where.
I think, to me, the way it's come together, and Julie can correct me if I misspeak here, I think it's been fairly collaborative about making those two arguments. And I think the way she's articulated it, I actually gave her some words early on and she changed it, she cleaned it up and made it even more clear. I think it's a pretty compelling argument. I think the other one's a pretty compelling argument. I think it's really us to go, here's two approaches. It's the only place that there's differences, and these are the approaches, which then leads to, okay, if you follow the second approach, then that's why there's more data behind it, because there's more action. One says leave everything on the map. The other one says consider the properties on the map before you finalize the map. That's the only difference between the entire everything.
When do you
Well, I
consider?
don't know if I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if that's the only difference. I would say that option B entrusts the BOT to do a lot of early review before we ever got to annexation.
Right.
Right.
And that's the main difference.
That's the main difference, right? That's the main difference. And it's a big difference, but they're gonna have to discuss and debate that on their own. And that's why we're presenting both options. And I think an articulate way, in a way that's equally compelling, and let them decide.
I do think it'd be good for us to like each arrive at, our thoughts on one preference,
Yeah.
one or the other, so that whether we include that kind of vote or whatever in here, whether it's a call to vote or not, or just be prepared to answer a question if they ask what was the split of the task force. I think that'd be a good thing. to
Okay.
prepare for. So we're not
I would agree.
scrambling.
I'm kind of with Julie. I'll defer to the group, the collective group, and whatever they mean.
I kind of like leaving it vague unless we're asked specifically, because really not inherent in the reasons why we came up with two different versions. Matter viewpoints, it doesn't matter numbers really. And then my next point would be, again, I don't know, time-wise, are you gonna get real in-depth with this option B as far as?
Not really,
Like all
no, I
these
don't think,
bullet
I mean,
points and
well,
everything?
no, I don't think so. I think we kind of talk about the basic idea. I mean, we cover, almost all of those points come out somewhere earlier in the document and or in the legal agreement itself. And when the concern, the primary concerns area is probably the most important page in the entire document, more so than the recommendations.
A way to handle that might be to just reflect on that first informal show of hands and say very early in the process, we did an informal poll of the group and it was almost evenly split because it was at that point between those two options. If people want to know who voted what, they can go watch the meeting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it reflects that, yes, we presented these two, and it was pretty early on in the process that we realized that we were gonna have differences there. And maybe that's how we frame it. So it was fairly evenly split. There's an odd number of people, so people can extrapolate that it was probably 3 to 4. And if they're really curious and need to know who said what.
Are
they
we
can find out.
talking about the vote to accept or not accept the map?
We're talking about that day after, no, not that vote. It was later, like the next meeting,
It
I
was
think,
about
and
the
we just had like
third
a
or fourth
general
meeting.
show
Oh,
of
just which way
hands.
to have two options or
Right,
not?
We
or
leave all
what they
parcels
do.
on there.
Because
Yeah.
it wasn't ever a formal vote, and maybe it doesn't need to be a formal vote. Maybe
Right.
that informal assessment and weight of where people were early on, that guided the rest of our process, and that was where we decided to present the two options. I mean, that's a way to manage it
Yeah.
that gives the board some information. It wasn't one person against everyone. It was a fairly even split early, and then that's why we went in the direction we went.
Yeah, and maybe I should work that into the
Mhm.
preamble.
And then they don't even have to ask.
Okay, all right, so let's keep that as an action item. And then let's keep it as an action item during the approval process and just make sure we've at least either covered it or if we need to add clarity.
So just, I know we jumped into kind of later in the presentation document, there were a couple things, before that, under the key findings that I just wanted, or maybe it was under the key recommendations that I just wanted to bring up. Or-
Where are we at?
You want to, should we go through the whole?
I
Let's
wasn't
go through the
sure, like,
whole,
yeah,
let's go through the whole
I'm
outline.
just gonna zip through it, because we did
Yeah.
make all those changes.
Yeah, and there were a lot, and I
Yeah.
captured most of yours, a
Yeah,
few
no,
got
I think it was-
scrambled because we combined some of them, and then Julie, I got hers like literally at the same time, so
Yeah.
I did one and then I went back and it's like, oh, wait a minute,
Yeah,
I just
I was trying
changed
to-
it.
The drafting process must have.
Yeah,
What page are you
I
on?
think it was.
I'm just on the
Are
outline.
we still on
Yeah,
for
yeah,
page one?
the
Thank
page
you.
one.
We skip down. just-
Yeah. Basically, what I covered when I just previewed was everything in item number 1, which is all the background
Right,
data.
right.
And I don't think there's none of that's controversial. Then we have the key findings, and one of the things I did just to make it easier for us, I printed how this will look in the presentation. And it's a little easier to read this way. It's the same words, but it's a little easier to read. The only thing I think we should try to do is, if we're able, if we're able, I think we should talk about if they need to be in any different priority order. Like if there's some that I think maybe would want to move up the list or down the list. But if you want, we can just read from here. It's the same data that's on the outline. That's okay with everybody? No, sorry. Sorry. Short, but I'll. There you go. So that first point under item 2 on the outline, the task force held widely different perspectives. That's actually sort of in the preamble of what the challenges were. So it kind of ended up in a different spot in the presentation. And then the primary area of concerns, I started this by saying that the task force felt that the primary concerns around the draft IGA as expressed by the citizens were summarized as follows. And these were there's actually 10 of them. I took the numbers off of it to make it cleaner, and I worded it as a concern. So when I present this, I'll probably just hit that headlines, not necessarily go through each one.
Yeah.
The first one, and I think is the highest priority and everybody would agree with, was concerns about trust and transparency. A lack of community trust exists in the IGA process and for the BOT and Boulder County as stakeholders in the process. Right, everybody still good with that one? And Jen, if you're there, I'll try to keep an eye on the screen, but just
Holler at us.
unmute and start talking. Okay?
Don't be shy.
All right. Yeah, I have the other document open here on my desktop, so
Yeah.
I can see it, and it's helping me figure out what you're talking about.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're on the first page, primary areas of concern. Okay. The second one was concerns about potential impact of development on environmentally sensitive land. The third one was concerns for health and safety risk, fire, egress, flood, stormwater runoff associated with potential development, the potential development outlined in the IGA. And stop me if anybody has any edits as we go. The next one was concerns about housing needs. And I'm feeling like this one should move higher up on the list, maybe Jen or Julie. Citizens want to assure that any future annexation / development be prioritized to address the town's defined housing needs, following the principles outlined in the Lions Comprehensive Plan, and that each should be maybe each development, support the goals of housing affordability / availability in a realistic, measurable, and feasible way. So that was a little bit wordsmith to combine 2 different sets of edits. Does that still sound okay, Julie?
And I would like to move it higher, but.
Well, I think we should talk about that. Yeah, we could either go through them all, or I felt like that one should be moved up higher because it obviously was in the minds and thoughts of the board and planning.
For prioritizing these, it should certainly be in the top 2 or 3.
Well, you can move it higher, but the sad part is there's no way you could ever changed the definition of goal of housing affordability, because the way they have it structured in Boulder County or the state of Colorado as far as housing affordability, they still go by a scale. And being in Boulder County or St. Lorraine, this district, no matter how you look at it, what they call affordable housing and the way they scale it is one thing. And so whether you're in Boulder or in Long Rock or like here in Lyons, we have a set fee or rate or whatever it is. And so what we call affordable housing in Albuquerque, New Mexico, is totally different, like here in Boulder County. And it's sad because the numbers are so different. And even though our task, our goal is to make sure we all have affordable housing, and we're helping people get to that point so that they can live comfortably, it still seems far out of reach for people. They still can't seem to find it because there's a minimum of what they have to have, and then they can't be over a certain amount. And so it's a difficult thing with people over in summer property, for example. It was such a headache of due diligence for people who tried to even get in there. And then when they found out that they could get in, then they found out they made $1 too much. And so you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so the same thing happened with all the affordable units that they've been building over in Longmont. They're in that same bit. Well, they can't get in, they can't get in. Right. When we look at everything that we want to build and put together here in the task force, and we're looking at all these different properties, we're going, it makes no sense to even try to even get it together to do it, because even if we try to put it together, it's going to be out of the range for anybody to make it affordable. Because, yeah, we're going to put it up in Cleveland, but you might as well put it in Mississippi because it ain't going to work.
And I think that's where the words realistic, measurable, and feasible way come into play. I mean,
yeah, we'll take this next section, put this on top.
Yep.
But that little line is there. Support a goal of housing affordability.
Well, and then it looks, I mean, then down here, that's what this whole one is about, is what, can we clarify what those goals are? Can we clarify what those metrics are? Can we, so I think we have two different things, and I think they speak to that. Like, so this one is about, yeah, let's make sure housing is a priority. This one is about, what does that actually mean and look like, and can you clarify that? So I think that might address what
They should be together. This should be down in Cleveland. This should be up here. You see what I'm saying?
So you have that right after this one.
Almost together and right there, because there's still that, like
They're
I said,
related. And
Yeah,
I
4 and
think that-
5, 4 and 10 should be probably.
I get that.
They're really
I
related.
think that
Yeah,
makes sense.
Maybe one right after the other because they do. But also, okay, I add something. So also like number 10, the first part is the concern. The second part is more almost the recommendation. And so like having written this, I suggest that we maybe pull out that second part and put it into the recommendation instead of recommendations outside of the IGA and the map to the board to consider.
I was feeling the same way. I was gonna
Kind of
mention that
otherwise,
when we
like,
got to that one.
You know,
That one
nothing
got-
else is in that particular order where it's like
Yeah.
concern, recommendation, we're just saying concerns here.
Yeah,
So maybe.
that one got long, so let's edit it when we
And
when
for
we get
what
done.
people ask me is they want actual numbers. They want to know, well, how many of each kind of housing
Well, so
is the
that's,
goal of our town? Because they sit around fighting about it,
Right.
and they don't even know they're fighting because it's not defined.
so.
So
they
that's-
want-
They want numbers.
They wanna know how many workforce units do we need that are at
So
a
spell
certain
it
rent
out.
level.
So that's-
So they know what to tell us.
Right.
let's read number 10 to make sure this captures it. So the heading is clarity about, concern about clarity of goals.
Towns.
Affordable
And it says,
housing.
that's,
Yeah.
and and what we're asking for is, the concern is the town's true housing goals, and especially the goals around affordable housing, remain unclear to many citizens. True housing goal numbers, affordable housing goals,
Mhm.
measures, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's
That's That's the
basis,
concern.
that's the
And then the
concern.
recommendation
So
would
much
be-
angst in
Right,
our
somewhere else.
town.
Yeah.
If everybody knew the number, they'd know, are we moving in on it?
Right.
So
What
then,
should
so
I
maybe we put
expect
this
next year?
concern
Right.
about housing needs
Well-
and then the concern about clarity of goals right
Right
after
next to
with
each
just
other.
one sentence, that first
Right.
sentence, and then the rest goes into a recommendation.
Everything
You
from,
understand where I'm coming from. See, a lot of you guys are settled and together. You guys have trust fund, you got things going on. But you know, when you
So,
go-
Yeah, right.
I don't know where you fit that expression, but okay.
look at all you guys, look at me.
Only with-
Don't, then you grow. Okay, let me tell you something right now. Okay, you're talking about affordability. I look at affordability on everything all the time. I'm not trying to be a
Yeah.
cheapskate, but you look at affordability. You look at where I'm representing and the people I'm talking to all the time, they are living on the edge every month, every time, every week. And when we talk, what you just said, numbers, concrete numbers, accountability. There's no one right now set for the next 3 years in this town, 5 years in this town that said, we're gonna build some more affordable housing.
Or how, I mean, what is the goal? How many of each type would be the goal? That doesn't mean they can reach the goal, but what is the goal? So we can all like settle in and say, hey, yeah, this is our goal.
instead of debating.
And that's also related to the, what workforce is needed to create a viable economic center. And I know, Andrew, you did some analysis maybe a month ago or something like that on what the kind of housing needs are of Lyons. It was something like 150 to 300 units or something in the
least.
next 5 or 10 years. But like that should be, refined and then also dove into a bit more to say, okay, great, that's 150, 300 units, but like how many of those are at a particular rent to income ratio that's gonna be attainable for someone running the bar at Rock Garden versus working at St. Vrain Market, when the students all go back to school and they lose their basic labor supply. So like all those questions should be answered and that need needs to be addressed.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Should we build that into this that recommendation should be cleared so that it reflects those ideas, right? Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's make sure that's
So-
in the recommendations and spelled out.
Yeah, and I think when we get there, I
Yeah.
believe that it is.
Okay.
So let's go back to our list,
You see what
and so we
happened?
don't lose Jen completely.
Stuff we're talking about now, which has been building into the third or fourth meeting, and I'm sorry we're bringing this up now, but these are the little things about affordability and these people who are not doing as well. And then when you have a major workforce, 50% of people who actually work in this town in little jobs, you got housing, you got housekeeping, you got, okay, no, we don't have sweepers like we have in Philadelphia, street sweepers, broom sweepers, janitorial, all that stuff. But you have people, this time of the year, we have I don't want to get into politics, but we have a situation where you have regular workforce that's needed of an infrastructure that needs to be taken care of. And if we don't have housing for those people, even in your life, and you're talking about next 5 or 10 years, we need 130, 150 pieces of housing. No, we need way more than that, and they need to be really, really, really affordable. Otherwise, you can't afford, because you can't expect people to drive from Longmont, Boulder, or Loveland, or even Tacoma Firestone every other day to come here to work. When you're looking at gas prices, and you're still looking at even the housing in those areas are starting to jack up. Okay, you just don't know what nothing you can do about it. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
To clear up the question though, I'm trying to stay out, but the first analysis was 733 units by 2050.
What was
Staff,
that analysis from?
the housing futures plan,
2050.
2050.
700.
Staff thought that was entirely way too ambitious for our growth patterns. I brought that down to,
That's a third of the size of our town added.
or sorry, 733 people. And then I brought that down to 300 people, so 120
Right.
units, 12% of those being affordable, so 15 units by 2050, which is low.
So our mission here today is not to sort that out.
It's just
Our-
to tell them.
But we're
to
never
do
gonna,
it.
we're gonna like.
I just wanted to
start-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, because it is all over the place.
Our entire task force is gonna start over if we go down this rabbit
Yeah.
hole, like, it really, and we're at 12:50, I'd really like to make this our last
I
meeting.
want to
so-
move on to the next
Okay.
one, if the next one is concerns related to natural constraints, but I lost track of where
It
we
is,
are.
that's exactly where we are.
Okay.
For Jen's, following along, we're on number 5. Jen,
Sorry.
So, this is sort of what I heard a lot about on my door-to-door 5-acre rule thing.
Yes.
But it's not what you have. So
But let me
I
go-
heard a lot about natural environment concerns, and you put flood, I mean, not, collectively, we have put flood zone blue line there, which could be up with the safety and health risks. And we could have a real line about view corridors, wildlife corridors, urban interface.
That
those
would,
kinds of
that would
things.
fall in the natural constraints
Yes,
area.
but, well, it's actually kind of natural environment. I mean, it could be a constraint, but that's sort of like a safety risk, right? It's a little different. I mean, what I was hearing were people, they want it to be beautiful like it's beautiful. They want it to be open like it's open. They want to have wildlife corridors. That's not so much, I mean, it's a constraint to building, but they were on the positive side, the door-to-doors, about what our environment is like.
Yeah.
So we have concerns related to maintaining a natural environment, is what I heard. And that wasn't really, I mean, those do tie in with, if you have those things, you have fewer floods, fewer debris flows going through your subdivision and things like that. But some of these floods on blue line, it seems like those are kind of health and safety
Right.
and wildlife corridors.
Yeah. So
Plants,
clean up those examples.
to boil,
Yeah.
to both be outside and hold down the soil, those
So
kinds of
what,
things.
if you'll take that one on,
Okay.
number 5,
All right.
and see if you can, because I think there's 2 different,
Yeah.
they're very related topics.
Yes.
There's health and safety, which I
Right.
wanted to make one topic.
Right.
And then there's natural
Maybe we
preservation.
And then we got
Natural
impact on
preservation.
developmentally insensitive lands, which could probably be combined. I mean,
Development.
but I'm not gonna get into the weeds on that. So
Yeah.
As many versions of that as you need.
Yeah, so work on number 5, Cindy, if you would. And then number 6, again, these all overlap. But there's a difference between development period and density development and the concerns that were expressed. Now, this next one was concern regarding the impact of density as related to risk factors while achieving the housing affordability and increased housing goals and compatibility with existing neighborhood developments. So it's like, that's a concern. It's not, these aren't the answers. These are the concerns. Remember,
Right.
okay? These are the concerns. So the concern is, how does that fit? That was the concern. And I think that got wordsmithed quite nicely to kind of cover, we need to be looking at these things, but it's a concern, right? There was a concern about prioritization. And this one, I think, Charles, you brought up multiple times. And it's a little outside of the scope of the IGA, but I think last time we decided we wanted it in there because it was important. And that is, so we're on number 6, Jen. Continue to prioritize infill or redevelopment within the core of Lyons in order to meet the defined affordability, obtainability, housing goals of the town. Maybe that should just be the defined housing goals of the town. That was a concern that's not for lose sight of that, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like a concern and a recommendation.
Kind of both, yeah. Some of these are.
Yeah.
The next one, I called concerned about state county overreach. Citizens want, in this, again, this is kind of outside of our scope, but it's sort of related. Citizens want the BOT and staff to continue efforts to maintain local control over town's expansion, annexation, and development process. I think Andrew can chime in, but I believe that is a high priority. He's mentioned it almost every meeting. The mayor has as well, so I think that's fine. Economic development concerns. And I like the way this got cleaned up. Future annexations should support Lyons' needs to support a commercially based economy, including ensuring adequate workforce housing to support commercial needs. But I think that's came together really nicely in that one.
Nice.
Is that good? Was that you, Jen?
Yep.
And then the last one we already talked about, concerned about clarity of the goals. So what I'm hearing is that I still think that the concern about trust and transparency is number 1. The concern about housing needs sounds like it should be number 2. And then we'll move the number 10 up just below that, so that would be number 3. And then the rest can all sort of fall
In the same order.
in line.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe we can put the prioritization about infill towards the bottom, since it's kind of out of the scope,
In the state
and the state, so move
control,
those
those are kind of,
to the bottom.
yeah.
We already know that they're already being addressed. you know,
Yeah,
Systemically.
And-
by this.
yeah, and again, I think part of this, in my mind, was certainly to communicate to the board. A lot of it, I think, is also to communicate to the citizens,
Mhm,
that, like, this is already happening.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
we're hearing, we hear that you, because people keep bringing that up, well, why don't they just focus on infill
Right.
instead of, well, they are. That's just not the scope of what we're covering.
Totally. Yeah, those are several.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Just the one thing that popped into my brain when you were talking about number 1 again, is I think we also need to stress that it is further up, or it's in the other document rather, is that we are a community, and it is a community that needs to participate together.
Yeah. We'll get to that when we get to the recommendations.
We
Yeah,
have to
100%.
make- I think we need to make both those points at the same time.
Yeah.
Just-
We do, yeah, and we'll get to it. That's the very next
That's
thing.
all, yeah.
Before we go off of this, Barney, from your perspective, from a development kind of PCDC filter, are we missing any big buckets, or is there anything that you think is like out of scope?
No, actually, I think this is fairly comprehensive and consistent with the discussions we've had at PCDC over time.
Very good. So I'll rearrange those. We'll drop them in the deck. And then, again, there'll still be a chance to wordsmith it if it doesn't come out, right? And Cindy, we can follow up on that,
Yeah, I'll.
that one that you're gonna
See
edit.
what I can.
I get where you're going.
You're fine. It's just
Yeah.
that everybody, I couldn't believe they kept saying that.
Yeah. Anything else? Julie, anything? Jen, anything on that?
I mean, it's nice.
No.
but I thought it was nice.
All right, that moves us on then to the, there's a note in there that the research findings, that's gonna be on a separate page. I don't know where that's gonna be, but somewhere that'll be in there to know that there's a bunch of research documents. Item number 3 was just explaining what we're providing. We're providing recommendations in 3 basic areas. I like, Charles, the way it got broken out. I think that turned out much more clear. So there'll be general recommendations on the development process. There'll be specific edits. Specific edits, no questions. Specific edits related to the actual IGA document. And
You could probably move in the end. Or at the end of that.
yeah, probably get rid of that.
And maybe a comma.
And I don't know if the last one is worded correctly, but it is what it is. A divided recommendation on how to address the IGA map.
Yeah.
What about various recommendations?
How about various, or I don't like.
Just recommendations.
Just recommendations and just drop divided.
Oh,
Yeah,
Should've just
maybe
stayed-
two
should've just stayed-
two separate recommendations, maybe. Just to clarify that they're not, they wouldn't happen together, one's usually exposed to the other. Two separate, or a divided sounds a little different.
Yeah,
That
that's-
sounds-
I didn't like the word divided either. that's why I had to say.
I just like using it as
Two
plural.
alternative, maybe
Yeah,
two alternative
alternative.
recommendations
Alternative.
for how to address the IGA map related to that.
Two alternative.
Two alternatives.
Two alternative recommendations. So it's clear that it's one or the other, at least as far as
Okay.
we see.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
There is some middle path between the two.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so this next section is really important, and this is, the last page is, I think, is probably the most important one, and that is reinforcing to the board what we think the town's concerns are. And I think that's coming together quite nicely. This next section on the general recommendations about the process. So again, we're not on the map, we're not talking about the agreement necessarily, although they relate to it, I think is really important. And I think these have come together well, although they're pretty wordy.
That's okay. I mean.
Which is okay.
These are the recommendations. They gotta have words.
Yeah, and I'll try to make sure that each one has a heading, I think I maybe got it there, so they all have a heading, that we can touch on the heading without reading the whole paragraph.
Are you saying during the presentation, you're just gonna read the heading? Or-
Well, I'll try to like do the heading and give up a sentence or so, but I'm trying not to read it word for word,
Sure.
you know, because they can read. So they're pretty brave.
Hopefully they'll have all read this ahead of time.
Yeah, that's why I want to get it
Mostly
to them
like,
early
all right,
enough.
let's talk about number one, acknowledging issues, like this is the general idea. What are your thoughts on it?
Right.
You know, hopefully. Can
Um,
we make that request to the board to read
They will,
this thing?
they will. That's what they do. That's why I want to get it to them early enough. It's
But
a
is
holiday
that- is
weekend.
that-
I don't want to get it
Right,
to them
well, I mean, like,
on a Friday night or
I'm
something.
new to this entity. Is that a expectation
Yeah.
of the board they read everything before it's presented? Because that can change the way that we make requests of them. Yeah, Barney.
I can comment on that.
Okay.
Because I was on the board for 6 years.
Yeah.
The expectation is you read just about every word. Now, honestly, sometimes there's boilerplate in contracts and
Yeah.
that sort of thing that you can scan over.
Sure.
But generated material like this,
Yeah,
the expectation is you read every word.
read it for understanding. Okay, so we can just assume that they'll come to this prepared to understand it.
Yeah.
And ask further questions.
Yeah.
Consensus, okay. So we don't need to make that recommendation of them, or that request of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first one had quite a lot of, everything that's read on this document today are edits since our last meeting. So we accepted all the changes. So everything you see in here is stuff that one or multiple of you have submitted since the last meeting. So number one, I thought was pretty strong. Acknowledge issues and improve transparencies. We recommend that the mayor and board of trustees make formal announcements that acknowledge the mistrust and frustration that was created in the IGA process thus far and take responsibility for it. That's a little harsh maybe,
I
but,
was saying, how do you think that's gonna go over?
well, that one's a little harsh.
I mean, if they wanna calm things down, that's gonna be the way to do it, frankly. You guys, you know,
I'm
wanna-
not even, I don't have.
Pitchforks away. Yeah.
I don't see that language, so I have to find.
It should be on page 2 of the
Yeah, I
outline.
might be looking at a different version, because what I have is not worded quite that strongly.
Are you with me?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I think I jumped ahead too early before, but, this one seems like, I don't know, take responsibility for it, that seems like, maybe take those words out, I don't know.
Why?
Let me finish, I'll just finish reading it and then we can come back. Further, let the community know that the BOT and BOCO are committed to going through this process transparently and with the community's needs and long-term goals at the forefront. That said, convey that this is a community-based process that requires citizen input and efforts and invite them to be involved in a variety of ways that they can. Bullet point number 2 was actually number 1 before, and it talks about the community. So I think we might still be doubling up on that. I'm open to saying that in a more concise and less confrontational.
That being number
Right.
1, I think if you wanna have them keep listening to you, I'd probably remove the first sentence and then hit a real strong emphasis on the second one. That, they should, where's it go? Let the community know that the BOT and the BOCO are committed to going through the process, and hit it really hard that they're going to, you know, do that process that way.
Just a comment, the board of trustees would not be surprised in any way, shape or form that people are highlighting this concern about lack of trust. It's not news to them.
I just
Yeah.
get the impression every
Anyway,
time I come to a meeting, they're real tired of it. I mean, every time somebody stands up to talk about anything related to this, you practically see some of them roll their eyes.
Well,
I mean, their faces get hard, not everybody. And I don't blame them because I'm sure they're sick of it,
well,
but
you may be seeing something that, you know, and I won't argue about that, but this paragraph to me is more oriented to the citizens.
okay, I mean, if we
Yeah.
can keep it, you
So that it's clear that this group is saying, look, this is a very important issue and board of trustees, you should take it on with renewed vigor.
Right.
All right, I mean, if
That's a
we
good
can not
message
turn
to
them
the
off.
population. you're not going,
You're not gonna frustrate the
It's
board
a
of trustees.
trend.
if they're
Some
used
of
to it.
that,
there
I
is-
don't know, have you come to some of those
Both-
meetings about the 5 acre rule? It's been brutal.
now, it's just, the point is that it's not, they're elected and actually they get paid every month to go through this.
Okay.
And they're very aware
All
that
right.
there are gaps, not pervasive, but gaps in trust. Kind of comes down to, there are people who want to make sure that the town can operate as effectively and efficiently as possible. There are others who want to make sure that the town has limits and constraints on their ability to do whatever they do. And there's a divide there. It's just a natural, it's not unusual in politics in any given community. So I wouldn't worry
Okay.
or dampen the
Importance.
importance or the actual attitude of this group. And I'm not trying to suggest it's one way or the other. I'm
No,
just
I
saying.
like you, I mean, it's great to hear that. It's just, I've been to several meetings lately where this was kind of similar topic, and watching some of the things that some of the bot members have said, it's made me think they're so done with this. But if we can do our job and once again tell them how upset the citizens were, and that's okay, then let's do
I
it.
think we
This
can
creates
get,
space for them to then.
Yeah.
Say, cool, now
Give it a
we're
try.
giving them, now they have the full, agency to say, sorry, like mea culpa, we're ready to move on and work transparently with the community to bridge that gap. I don't think there's anything that's offensive in this paragraph.
I think we can get there and get the same message without it. I think we can pick better wording and get the
I
same,
mean, I
strength
wish
of
we
message.
could.
I like the
just
renewed
watching
vigor.
them,
yeah.
I feel like,
I like the point being up there, but I just
me too.
feel like it can be more constructively worded. That's my feeling. Julie, you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I still cannot find for the life of me what you guys are looking at.
I'm sorry.
It reads fine.
That's just
Frustrating, isn't it?
Version
It would be like the second page.
I'm just, like, of all the documents I have, I'm trying,
Yeah.
which email was this in? Because what I have is version 5, and then I sent feedback to version 5, and then I don't see that I have version 6. So that's
let's
the
double
me
check
problem,
here.
probably.
Bear with me 1 second. If it was in, or you have email access right now, it was in the email that I sent out
IGA.
Yesterday was it?
yesterday
Yes,
evening.
it's still in my inbox.
And it had the cleaned up red line for the IGA that you had provided.
Opening that, version 6.
6/20 August.
Yeah. Bear with us.
Okay,
Nice.
thank you, sorry,
You
somehow
got
I
it?
did not download that new one, I downloaded the old one. Thank you.
Yeah, and so this has all the edits you
Okay.
gave as well.
And then we switched the order. Okay, I was so confused.
Yeah,
Like, this
sorry.
was to the community. What on earth? Now, why are we having a DOT? We're supposed to be yelling at the community.
So, all right, so
What's
that's
the next one?
I got it.
good. Martin?
I mean, the only thing I would say is that this justification was created by the IGA process. The acknowledgement is basically taking responsibility. Taking responsibility seems a little over the top.
You can take out that last.
Yeah,
last
Yeah, they've
part
got
of it.
responsibility.
They already have it.
There ain't no
They've
question
taken
about
it.
By acknowledging that the responsibility will have been taken, so you can remove that.
Well, and by
And then-
creating a task force, they took
And some of us
responsibility.
aren't on the last
Sure.
one, so
So-
it's like, hey, it wasn't even me.
Yeah,
That's really my only problem with that phrase.
Yeah, so
It
that's-
sounds like a little.
I think we all feel that way,
Let
but I'm
me-
not
if you
sure
guys-
it's gonna be.
I'll work on some wording and circulate it, and we can,
I think you could just remove that and take responsibility
Yeah.
for it. I think it's otherwise in a good spot. I don't wanna lessen this too much.
I want to I would like to also look back and see what was said when this task force was announced. And did they not make a formal announcement that they acknowledged that there was a problem and that there was mistrust and that they're establishing a task force? I think they already.
Right.
that's kind of what I felt too.
So why would
But there
we-
is a time period between then and now where people are still, there's a lot of rancor. And so this
Yeah.
is, to Barney's point,
Finish
this is
it off.
the audience is also the community. And so clearly people missed that responsibility taking action 3 months ago.
So the
June
board of trustees
or May.
continue to
I like,
apologize.
It wasn't
multiple
clear
times.
that you, I like the renewed vigor, you know,
Maybe they were like, all
We're already
right,
doing
call
it,
to
let's
order.
just-
We're sorry, I know we heard it, you know, like, this is a way to then.
but I think we can, if we use a word like Barney recommended, we're not saying you're not doing it, we're just saying put renewed energy in it. This is really an important thing. It's the number one concern. It's number one recommendation. But let's just play with the wording. We can come back to it. I think we're all saying more or less the same thing. Let's make it, this needs to be as constructive and positive as it can be. And we don't want to get people shaking their heads at the beginning. Number two is the community one that we all talked about last time. It got cleaned up and wordsmithed a little bit. But basically, we encourage the community members to get involved, get informed, speak to neighbors, BOT and others, assume good intentions of our elected officials and community members, avoid fake news, assumptions, accusations, remain united as a town and civil. I think that's the important counterbalance to number one. I know, Charles, you had recommended combining those. I just thought they were so important that I kept them separate. But I still think that's an important message for us to deliver because it's a bit of standing shoulder to shoulder with the board, saying we understand what you're up against here. And this isn't just a you thing.
Yeah, I would just say like to the community as a topic is a little confusing. Maybe call it message to the community, like put a noun in there or something like that, or advice to the community or some action verb or the noun that modifies what to is. So something just to the community.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah. It also says avoid fake new.
Yeah.
I tried making that edit several times
so did
now.
I.
And it comes back as fake new again. I'm like, I don't know why that's something.
If this gets too long, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I mean, do you need
You
to
might
say
take
avoid
the
fake
last
news?
couple of lines out, so I think we're saying the
Totally.
same thing.
Right, there's a lot going on in that.
Yeah, I don't
It's sort
know.
of like, boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Maybe that needs to be that whole.
Maybe just get involved, get informed, and speak to neighbors in the bot. I mean, maybe, because it's long. The
It's
whole
long.
presentation is long.
Yeah,
It is. And that's why I wanted you guys to see it in the presentation document. On here, it's really tough to get through. When it's on an individual page, it's going to be way easier to read.
Easy and not easy.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
Well,
if you're just looking for a little something, you can slow
Okay.
down.
all right, fair enough. Just in the interest of time, let's keep rolling. Number 3 is Jermaine. We could probably cut that down as well. Because we know it's gonna need to be done. They need to extend the deadline. It's probably has already happened.
There's a little edit, if you have need EED. I mean, sorry, this is probably not the time to do it, but we're here now, so. Mine says need, and then it says EED.
Yeah, it just didn't get cut. Yeah. Got it. Number 4. I don't really like the heading of this one, but the idea is learn the properties, understand what's going on. Proactively engage with landowners, proactively engage with the citizens. It's probably too wordy, but I think it's okay. I had a note on here and I got to bring myself back to it. Julie, you had proposed adding words carefully consider.
Instead of saying the IGA should not redesignate lands, because that's by directive, I think I suggested that we said they should carefully consider redesignating lands, but must also keep in mind longer term goals and possibilities for this 10-year.
Where are we?
So we're on number 4.
But where in it?
We're at the very bottom. In the last
The
line,
last part here.
the last line used to read, now it's the second to last line. As part of this, the IGA should not redesignate lands from rural preservations to PAA if the landowner objects. I think to me, that's a fairly important.
But people sell land
Ownership
over
right.
10 years. So if we're saying today, the guy who owns it today doesn't want to redesignate it, what if he sells it in 2 years? This is what I have a big problem with, locking today in for the next 10 years, because Matt could sell that property, Matt could move. So many things could change. Just because the current landowner doesn't want to do something doesn't mean 10 years, 8 years from now, that's appropriate. I have a big problem with us cutting off possibilities based on the snapshot of today and the interests of people today. I just
Martin,
don't
do you have
think
thoughts on that
that's
from the land use point
Yeah,
of view?
it almost seems like they should. Coach said only on a case by case basis if they're gonna change their, from rural preservation to PAA. I don't know, that's a tough one, but I tend to side with being more like instead of not, I think you should carefully consider, which is almost approaching that land person that owns that land on a case by case basis. Instead of just putting it in a big knot.
Or on the other side of it, just put a period after they should not redesignate land from rural preservation, and I'm a happy camper.
But I'm not.
I know,
Because
but I'm just saying, right? So there's another side of the coin. Because for years it was rural preservation. Why
the only
redesignate
constant
it
is
from what it
change,
was?
things change.
But yet they
additional
Jen, do you have any comments on that
Yeah.
particular section, or do you understand the question from
And that's
afar?
why we should stay out of there.
But the people who are there get to be there forever and no one else ever gets to be there. It's
I
just not.
thought part of rural preservation was to prevent sprawl and also preserve vistas in our valley. Was it not?
I thought so too.
To me, that's less of the question as to whether or not the town should change a particular, and I understand that some parcels might be changed over time because situations change, right? So I think that has to almost be the going into the discussion assumption. The concern on this particular one was, should the town change one because they feel like whatever, it's in the needs of the town, if the landowner does not want it changed. And the reason why a landowner might not want to change is because it opens up that land to possible placement of utility easements and other activities on their land that they may or may not want to happen. And that's where the question comes into play.
That's true. And it's the same as if they take a parcel that they decide is now a no development area without the landowner's permission, right?
Right. Yeah, it's the exact same. It's the exact same parcel actually that we're talking about. I understand Julie's point. I don't know how to reconcile it.
It's a difference of opinion that is behind most of this. Rural preservation had a point, and does it still have a point? Is it worthwhile?
Hannah, do you have a thought on that one?
I do. You know, the goals of these intergovernmental agreements and comprehensive planning in general is to consider the needs of the town going forward. They often are not reflective. You know, sometimes there's alignment and sometimes there's not about what a current property owner wants or doesn't want. But that's a different question than how is the town planning for its future? And so these types of documents and plans usually focus on how the town is planning for its future, because we do know property owners change, et cetera. The needs of a community change. So typically that's their focus is what does the community need and how and where might we be trying to meet that need over the next 10 years. And I think one of the essential components of these intergovernmental agreements is to temper that rate, right? So in the past, something might not have been designated rural or may have been designated rural preservation while the community did infill development or annexed and developed the lands before it in succession. So as those lands in succession get developed, then the next kind of area for growth becomes those rural preservation areas. And at this point in time, the community says, okay, well, we have this need for housing, we have this need for some additional development, and where does that go? Which sort of necessitates that some of those properties that were kind of being held in reserve to temper the rate of growth transition to being something that might be considered for annexation. And that is exactly how you kind of limit sprawl and leapfrog development. You temper and pace growth, and that's, you know, what the town has tried to do over the years.
I was just gonna say, to piggyback what Julie was saying, you know, it's, if it read something along the lines of should carefully consider redesignating any lands from rural preservation to PAA with stakeholder engagement. Because that speaks to the whole transparency issue that is at the heart of this. A lot of these changes were made without any stakeholder engagement. So if we put that in there, especially the people that own the parcel.
Yeah, that includes the property owners, but it also includes everyone else who also has a stake in it. It's not just about one guy owning one piece of property today.
So it seems like, to me, that again, that speaks to what we're here for in the first place, was the fact that we want to eliminate some of these mistrust issues and things that get redesignated without any explanation. Doug, I know that's been at the heart of what you wrote about further down the line here in the presentation. And I think that really could be spelled out there as a stakeholder engagement as a key phrase. If you're going to redesignate something for rural preservation, especially in PAA, because that seems to be the red flag for everybody, right?
It is. But
So-
I don't see how if we go there, then we've spent all these weeks maybe doing nothing different. Right? I mean,
To me, this was, and again, I'm understanding both points. I don't think it means we haven't been doing anything. I just think the landowner's opinion counts. The only reason the Boone property, the only reason the Carpenter property are on the list, there is no other reason they're on the list, is because the landowners want them on the list to change. So
I think
We've
that's a
acknowledged-
false statement, but
really,
I mean, they are contiguous to town.
but they were
But-
contiguous to town
Town-
last time, and they
yeah.
were up in the. you
they
know,
weren't even considered
slopes and
when
bad
the
spots.
town in 2016 and 2017, when the town looked at the areas of growth, they weren't even studied.
And before that, the last time back, they were studied and rejected out all of the things that
And
you've
nothing's
already
changed to
highlighted.
make those more viable than they were before.
I don't know, at least, and I don't know the history prior to 6 months ago. But
Well, I can show you
You
the
can read a
report.
lot about it,
Yeah.
and the things we've linked,
Yeah, I mean, that's the importance of understanding studies.
it's where it
I mean,
all
there's a
started.
very comprehensive
No, I
study in
understand.
2016, 2017.
And before that chart I made used the one before that. about
So
why
I
they-
think let's come back to let's work on the wording. I get where you're going.
Landowners are gonna change and their input comes in if they want to annex and they file an application for annexation. Otherwise,
Well-
we're cutting off possibilities, and I just disagree with that as a philosophical argument for a
But-
10-year agreement.
But that Walters property, that's different, because they wanna make it PAA, and you can't develop it except for the city. And the person doesn't want that. That is not very kind. If they wanna make it PAA and develop it into him being able to build on it, that's kinder. But to say that if you wanna annex in, you have to annex in only as something as the city can use. You can't build on it yourself. That's really not, and there is nothing about that property that's less buildable than Carpenter.
In fact, it's more.
It is just not kind to that person. It's such overreach, that one
I am
parcel.
in favor of expanding opportunities for current and future landowners in whatever way that means, not limiting them. So if they're limiting, I disagree
They
with limiting
definitely
opportunities.
limit them. In the last one, we took the verbiage out, so for now at least that is, but I don't remember what the map looks like for that guy. I think it's got red lines on it.
Yep.
So
So
it's still
let's take
there.
that one under, we're not gonna solve it in the next couple of minutes.
Consider stakeholder engagement.
Consider stakeholder engagement. Let's play with the wording and see if we can come up with something we agree with. If not, we'll take a vote on it and we do the final and we can go from there. Study history, we cut most of that out and cleaned it up a little. I think that's it's a little, shouldn't have to be said, but it is what it is. I don't think there's any controversy on that one. Stop me if I'm wrong. Everybody's number 5. Really nothing happened there. One word got changed there, prioritize instead of concentrate.
Sorry, really quick, going back, that actually could be, I mean, that
It's
could
the
actually be
same.
combined.
4 and 5 are
with
the
4.
same.
You know what
I think
mean?
so
Like,
too.
it's sort of like gain a clear understanding by visiting the properties and looking at the historic information and goals of previous IGA drafts. I mean, that could be combined. And that way it can be a little more concise, unless you really want to pull out.
Let's try it. We'll try to combine. It'd be good if we can combine them. That'd be
And
good.
that title really does need to be direct, I think, about visit, I mean, maybe just visit the sites.
Yeah, visit sites and understand the changes, maybe.
Do the research.
That could just be it.
And
Yeah.
know the history, it could be
Yeah.
much shorter.
Visit the sites
But it
and
really needs to be direct,
Yeah,
so that they
research the
can't ignore
history,
it,
totally.
the rest of it by going on over the paragraph.
So someone could wordsmith a better,
Okay.
all encapsulating title for those.
We'll
two.
combine 4 and 5.
With a clear, concise title.
We're surprisingly already up against, I'm watching the clock here in the back.
Yeah.
We're up against our deadline. Is anybody have a serious hard stop?
I do. I can give 5 more minutes.
Okay.
but-
Jen, you okay to hang with us for just a minute? She's on vacation, yeah. I'm already committed. All right, we're almost done. Let's plow through it. Barney, are you okay for just a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 6, again, there weren't really any changes. Number 7, this is again a little bit like that last concern that we found. I mean, it's kind of outside of the scope of the IGA. It's just,
Not really though, because it's, I mean, that's like, immediate opportunity. So in my mind, what I jumped to there was, the Tebow property.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of puts us back in line with where they've always been before, built on the Eastern Corridor.
Yeah.
It's both of those. It's like, yeah, definitely like Tebow's a huge opportunity, but also
Right.
consider that
Right,
infill. So it combines those two
right.
ideas. Yeah.
yep. Everybody more or less okay with that at this moment?
I should.
Should
according to the past plan.
Julie, you good?
Well, we all agree that that's one of the properties that's immediate.
Yeah, I mean, it's going through the process now.
Right.
So
Number 8 has just been cleaned up in wordsmith. I think it reads nicely.
this is the one where we're talking, is this where we would combine some of these
That's-
ideas
Right.
that we were discussing earlier?
This is the one,
Yeah,
this is
that-
actually define the goals.
Is that comprehensive enough? And I guess Sunny, that'd be interesting to hear what your thoughts are on this one, but like, you know, the goals, maybe it should say define real goals and establish metrics for housing and affordable housing, just to clarify the title.
Housing goals.
Housing goals, town housing goals and affordable housing needs, you know, housing affordability, so it's not affordable
Okay.
housing as a noun.
And then the last one were the various guiding principles that mostly referred back to the survey that was used to create the comprehensive plan. There's been a couple additions there that I think are good additions. And it kind of balances everything out. So unless somebody has questions, we'll just keep rolling.
I don't know where this fits in, but like, I don't know if this is in number 8, but the way that housing affordability is determined, like pricing essentially, whether it's rentals or single family home sales that the town's providing, like, you know, utilizing the AMI versus rent to income ratios, things like that.
I think that's all kind of prescribed and predefined. Whether or not we can achieve, they're achievable, that's a different topic, but I don't think there's any question in anybody's mind that when we talk about affordable housing and the different levels, what the measurements are, right?
No, I mean, Boulder County, it's
Yeah.
fairly standard.
You cannot.
It's 60% rental and 100% for equity building.
And I think everywhere that I've seen it used, it's been very consistent in all the documents across them. So I don't think there's any question that needs to be clarified or
But when pricing is set for rentals, how is that done?
Right.
Because that kind of is the crux of what Sonny was bringing up, something that I'm like trying to understand from a renter's perspective, like, is that clear? And is that's worthy of further consideration?
Sure.
You know, so I want to ensure that that's captured in here, that rental pricing and rental setting should be considered in a really meaningful, in a way that actually provides opportunity for the workforce in lines. Because currently, like, as I understand, it's whatever pricing tool they're using isn't really all that effective. So that should be captured. It's not effective, let's just say it. I mean, how many of those units are currently vacant because they can't find suitable renters?
I think they're.
They're helpful now?
They're not.
So they're not.
Well, we're sitting on 9 right now, they can't be moved into because of the construction.
Oh, that's.
No, but as far as,
Yeah.
yeah, they're remote.
And.
So let's leave it at this before we go down a rat's hole
Yeah.
again, another rat's hole. If you have an addition
Yeah.
to put in
Within the
that, submit
draft.
it.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to tell them to follow an AMI goal because those are very
No,
clearly
no.
defined and they're used
So-
everywhere.
Hannah just put a really good note in the chat that says, "Hi, all. I know we are running out of time, but I did want to note that this language in the draft I have available, quote, given that the IGA supersedes all other directives, unquote, on page 20 is not an accurate statement. The IGA will not supersede the town's annexation or development processes. The IGA spells out what properties may be allowed to be considered for annexation." But I think all of these conversations we're having, we all have very strong opinions about, but a lot of these processes are already written.
Well,
Right?
and I just don't want to mislead folks into thinking that the IGA does things that it doesn't. Right? It's an important document, but it is not the end all be all. And I'm just, that statement there worries me a bit.
Where is
Which
it at?
statement are you looking at?
Page 20, right?
It's in the packet that I was able to download from the Agenda Center. I think in here, it's page 20 of the packet, page 5 of the document, under option B. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't really want to interrupt all the flow of conversation earlier. That was just my one thing I wanted to.
That was an important one, though. Definitely need to capture that one.
So this is under the map recommendations,
I don't know. It's just-
and it's, well, I'm looking at the full packet, but under the map recommendations, which I think would be, let's see if I can find it on
Page,
this
it's page 5.
form here, let's see.
I mean, especially given the concern voiced
Oh, I
about
see what you're saying.
Under
the
option
town's
B,
ability to
the first sentence in the
control
second
its own
one,
destiny.
given that the IGA supersedes, so that's not accurate.
It supersedes all other agreements, not directives.
Make sure, check with Hannah, I don't know, but that's what she's looking at.
That's the word you're worried about.
Well, it doesn't say agreement. It says, if we changed agreement, then it says agreements to the town in the BOT. That doesn't necessarily make sense either. So I just wanted to flag it.
I think what it was trying to capture, Hannah, was from one of your very early explanations that this agreement supersedes all other agreements. So this supersedes the comprehensive plan. It supersedes all other studies, is the way that it was described or articulated earlier. And maybe I think that's what that point was trying to cover, but the wording directive is not correct.
Well, I don't know if supersedes is even the right word, because again, these intergovernmental agreements are intended to kind of take your comprehensive plan and include all of that and put it into, it is a legally binding document, which is different than the others. And I think we talked about that in the past. And so that point about what can be annexed or what can't be, that is part of the legal agreement. So
Okay,
I'm
well,
not real sure what you were trying to say here. I just really wanted to flag that's.
Okay. Yep, that's captured. We'll look at that and wordsmith that. clarify that. I might send you a draft edit once we clarify and see if it jives. If that works for you.
Sure, thanks.
We're really now bounced up against all of our deadline here. Were there any other, before we leave, on the actual document itself? I think everybody's thoughts, edits have been put in there. I know Julie has gone through this a number of times. I've gone through it. I think Jen's gone through it a lot. So any comments, questions on that at this point? Martin, anything from you on that? So let's do this. Let's kind of try to take this, as we said, let's drop this into the presentation. Now, as written, we'll try to make these various edits. I'll try to address Hannah's last point because I know exactly where she's talking about. And then we'll circulate it out to the group as quickly as possible, probably no later than Friday.
Yeah.
And then should we do a 30-minute Zoom meeting, say Wednesday? Would that be appropriate to just do a final read through? And we can be talking in between now and then as individuals. Does anybody- does that sound good to everybody? I don't think we need an in-person meeting, do we?
Let me double check next
I
one.
likely won't be able to join, but, at this point, I feel like.
We'll chat on the
Yeah.
draft in
If there's any,
between.
yeah, exactly. I'll contribute my comments. to the
Yeah.
draft.
Yeah, 'cause if we do Zoom, great, because even if I'm out of town, I mean, I still.
For your thing, yeah.
If we can do it at one
One.
instead of at noon by Zoom on the 28th.
That works for me too.
28, 1 o'clock is 30 minutes in, or maybe I'll do it for an hour. Did you say, pardon?
At 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
And you said,
Is that cool with everybody? Is that workable? Any objection?
And then do you want to have a drop dead deadline for people to send you anything else they want to include?
I mean, it would be nice if I could get everything by, if we're gonna do that Wednesday, I'd like to get it to all of you by Tuesday. So let's say like by Tuesday morning,
By
Drop dead.
Monday night,
Monday night would be even better.
Monday night. It's in our action items,
And
and I would
packets will
say
be due
just cut
Thursday.
it off at that point, or else
Yeah,
you're never gonna.
sure.
get this done.
I don't want you to push yourself up against a hard deadline.
Yeah, I think if we do the final edits on Wednesday at noon, then we can turn it
I
around.
just want you to
And-
have time.
Yeah, that'll work good.
Doug, I gotta get going, but I
All
just wanna say, I'm probably not gonna see you guys again since I'm gonna be out of here for like the next 3 weeks, but it's been a pleasure working with you on this project and I'll see you all around town.
Thanks, man.
Jen, thanks for hanging in. Hannah, thank you for your inputs.
I just wanted to clear up my statement about the properties. The town has been interested in utilities and having higher utilities for quite some time. Not to expand properties, but just have better water pressure. That's all. I'm not talking about housing. This has been very housing focused, but utilities on some of those properties would be quite beneficial to the town. So, and fire access secondary.
Thanks, Andrew.
Move
Important
to-
stuff there.
Second,
What'd you say, Jen?
I said what Andrew said is important.
it's really important.
It was important.
Unfortunately, no one's gonna hear
you heard him.
We heard him. I think it was on the record still. I don't think it
Okay.
was.
That speaks to this.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Jen, any last comments?
No, I have another town meeting tonight though, so there goes that day for vacation. That's okay though.
Did y'all adjourn?